Good morning. I am Dr. Sridhar Kalyanasundaram, consultant neonatologist. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for subscribing and thank you for keeping the notifications on. I would continue the NRP series, and as you all aware, we have the NRP update. The ALSG brought out updates for all the resuscitation protocols, and it includes NRP. So in this session, I will cover the important updates in relation to the neonatal resuscitation program. So we have a few important updates, and the main points are that every birth should be attended by at least one person who can perform the initial steps of newborn resuscitation and initiate positive pressure ventilation, whose only responsibility is the care of the newborn. This is similar to what was existing, a bit of rephrasing to stress that they should be having the sole responsibility of looking after the baby, and they should be capable of positive pressure ventilation. So advanced skills is not needed for every delivery. However, you should be able to anticipate and call for help. Skin to skin care is stressed as well in a more categorical way. So this is because there is more evidence that shows that skin to skin care can be effective in improving breastfeeding, temperature control, and blood glucose stability, and this applies even to the premature and growth restricted babies. So this was mentioned in the previous guidelines, but again the wording has been rephrased to make it more strong recommendation. In terms of meconium stain liquor as well, there is a little bit of rephrasing. The old guideline said that when meconium is present, routine intubation for tracheal suction is not suggested because there is insufficient evidence to continue recommending the practice. Now there is more strong evidence. So for non-vigorous newborns presenting with apnea or ineffective breathing effort delivered through meconium stain amniotic fluid, routine laryngoscopy with or without tracheal suction is not recommended. So it's a stronger statement, and it also states that for non-vigorous infants who have evidence of airway obstruction during PPV after being born through meconium stain fluid, intubation and tracheal suction can be beneficial. So we will be discussing this aspect in detail in the next video, which will be on the ventilation corrective measures, or Mr. SOPA. But for now, this update is mainly stressing the same but with a slightly stronger language. And there has been recent evidence which has brought out that intraosseous access in newborns may be associated with side effects, complications. So even though we always prefer the umbilical venous route, here they have worded it the same way. For babies requiring vascular access at the time of delivery, umbilical vein is a recommended route. And if IV access is not feasible, it's reasonable to use the intraosseous route. So just a word of caution here that the intraosseous route may not be totally safe. Don't use it as the first choice. Prefer the umbilical venous line. In practice, though, this is what we do. This is a very important aspect that has been clarified, termination of resuscitation. Again, I would stress that not much has changed in terms of what we actually do. Even though the previous guidelines said 10 minutes, very rare that we would stop CPR at 10 minutes if there is no return. Most of the time, effective resuscitation for 20 minutes was what most units would have practiced. Again, the old statement was in a newly born baby with no detectable heart rate, it's appropriate to consider stopping resuscitation if the heart rate remains undetectable for 10 minutes. The current guideline states in newly born babies receiving resuscitation, if there is no heart rate and all the steps of resuscitation have been performed. So here this is important that we stress on all the steps of resuscitation have been performed. We would add that it should be effectively performed, and cessation of resuscitation effort should be discussed with the healthcare team and the family. So it's very important to involve the whole of the team as well as the family in these decisions, so there is no disagreement at that stage. Parents are anxious, obviously they may not understand the whole picture, but the futility of the whole process should be explained to them. The impact on the long term, even if the baby survives after this long a period of resuscitation, should be explained as well. A reasonable time frame for the change in goals of care is around 20 minutes after birth. So this is more realistic, and this is what most people practice. So even though the guideline has changed the statement, in practice it probably doesn't change, and you should remember that it's not 10 minutes anymore. We should have at least 20 minutes of effective resuscitation and involve the family and the healthcare team as well. And the last part is about maintaining the skills. So we know that we need a renewal every 2 years, but it is important to have more frequent sessions, and the new update mentions that and clarifies that as well. So individual units can plan something like a skill drill every 3 to 6 months based on the same NRP protocol. So I know most units have this, and wherever I have worked, I've implemented the skill drill option. The less busy the unit, the more often you should do it, actually, because you get de-skilled. The working as a team needs to be stressed more. So this is the main updates in relation to the NRP. As an interesting add-on, in pediatric resuscitation, the main change is that the rate of breaths even during CPR has been revised to 20 to 30 breaths, or one breath in every 2 to 3 seconds. So the 4 to 6 seconds breathing rate has gone from the older kids resuscitation as well. Obviously, that's not the scope of this discussion. I hope this is useful, and do subscribe and turn on notifications if you have not already done so. And because it's a very important and useful topic, do share with your colleagues. I hope it's helpful, and thank you so much.